All right. Hey, what's up, Mike? This is such an honor and privilege to see you, brother. Thanks for joining us today on the Top Spin podcast, bro.
Hey, man, debut. Good job.
What is up, sleeves?
No joke. Entering the podcast pickleball space, it's cutthroat.
It's
Farm and family. Farm and family.
dude. What are you in, like a chicken coop, bro? Tell us about that. I mean, what's the deal with the headphones?
So I used to do. I've done other podcasts before, and I never had like adequate headphones. So the guy that was sort of running the podcast just sent me, and it was a panel thing. He sent us these gaming things because he didn't want to spend a lot of money, but they actually work pretty well. So I wear them because I'm in a guest house. I live on 15 acres with a bunch of other people. And so this space is always getting occupied. Somebody might walk in here. There's actually coolers behind me and open something up. So it's so
like
they don't hear us and I don't hear them. So
Is that like
yeah.
the Waco, Texas compound from back in the day? Or?
Sort of.
I
It
know.
is. It's 15 acres in the southwest corner of New Mexico, and it is we refer to it as the Gila Oak Land Trust. So there's about a dozen of us, and we all have our own incomes. We all have our own property, but we also have communal spaces like this guest house, communal gardens, communal kitchen. We all have our own kitchen as well, and root cellars and things like that. So we all share sort of the burden of the heavy lifting, where we don't all have to raise chickens, we don't all have to grow tomatoes, and we all kind of all do our thing. And I live in a yurt with my cat, my dog, and my wife.
A yurt.
So
Yurt.
do you guys like can pickles and like can and stuff, or?
People do here. I do not. I just grow things that you can smoke and eat your salad.
Raw.
Ah, nice. There you go. So Sleeves, man. First of all, thanks again for being on the podcast. I know that you've been in the game for what, a couple of years now, or
It'd be
18
2
months.
years, February 9th.
Yeah, congratulations. I know you're running the senior pickleball report, bro. Just like you asked me, like, how did you look at that? The senior pickle. How did you even get into pickleball? Like, what's your journey to that sport like?
Obviously, like a lot of people with the pandemic, I was on just that summer in 2020, kind of where it was starting to really start to roll. I was in Tahoe with some family, and my niece had a boyfriend at the time who brought some paddles and balls, and we were staying at a resort. I think it was actually right where they had the Olympics in the 60s, and they had some pickleball courts there. And I was whacking it around. I'm like, this is pretty cool. But I thought, where am I ever going to play this? I live in the middle of nowhere. I literally, the closest town to me is 35 miles one direction, and that's only a town of 10,000 people. So arguably, I live in one of the places that in the lower 48 that is, the furthest away from a grocery store. But we have these dilapidated tennis courts that were built in the 1970s that are about 5 miles from my house.
Love that.
So I came back, told these people about pickleball, and a buddy of mine who plays tennis, he goes, there's a group that painted some lines on one of our courts and they play. And I'm like, what? So I went down there for a week to see who would show up. And this couple who's seasonal here from London had a group of 6, and I just started hitting the ball around with them. And we call it the Gila Bounce because these courts are just, you can see it in some of my videos. I mean, I've done some paddle reviews, obviously, for Gregory, and it's just... Yeah. It's
the worst pickleball
horrific.
court in history, right? I love that.
Yeah, it's great because anytime you go to a real court, it's so easy to return a ball, because if you can return a ball in these courts, you're getting your hand-eye coordination.
I know.
Pretty good. So.
I'm like the roads in California are pretty shitty. I mean, I'm like looking at your tennis court, going, "Oh my god, bro!
Yeah,
let's go play."
So we're in the process of raising money through the bureaucracy of county government, and we actually have some money dedicated towards a community center that's just as old, and these courts. Now it's just got to be allocated to the specific project. So that should be another decade.
Yeah, I would say they're pretty comparable to our Crescent Lake courts here, where there's a podcast. I think it's like people don't like tennis or something. I don't know. Some weird folks that do it, but you know, not to mention their podcast, but yeah, I think they're the best courts in the world, and they're the worst actually, and they have a podcast there. But I think there's some pros that play there once in a while. I think maybe
Yeah,
number
yeah.
10 or something like
Pros.
that. But
Yeah.
yeah, pros that don't like real balls.
Pros. Yeah. Yeah. So,
But
hey,
yeah,
so I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt. So I was just going to say too that, you brought Gregory on before me, and Gregory called out my sweaty balls on your pod, if you recall. And so I
Dude.
had to like know more
did I
about
really say that?
you and yeah, you totally called out my sweaty balls, bro.
Ah,
What
sorry.
the fuck? Okay, anyway, so I just was curious, like, tell us how about your background. Like, how did you start the pod, or what, do you have a
Yeah.
entertainment background? Are you a radio guy, or what's your deal?
Well, yeah, my degree from the University of Wisconsin, go Badgers, is in public speaking. So out of college, I went into sales, but then eventually I just got tired of selling things, and I went into teaching, and I taught high school for about a dozen years in Phoenix with my wife. And
What did you teach?
I taught mainly everything, but the two main subjects were American literature and U.S. history, and some drama, like you said. So I did that for a while. I've always been, I've given I've given 2 TEDx talks, so I've always been okay in front of an audience, in front of a camera. And I have a friend of mine who we used to do video production with in Phoenix, who actually edits my videos. And we're always trying to drive traffic. He has a news site and I always say powered by TNC Network at the beginning of my show. And it's a news site that's, non-political stuff, kind of just benign news. And we're trying to drive traffic to it. So I said, I've been playing pickleball for like 3 months. I should just start a channel.
You're one of those.
I'm one of those.
I knew it.
So I just did it because, and then I thought, well, I'm a senior, according to the pickleball rule.
I think we're all
and nobody's
seniors,
doing
right?
that, and
We're all
nobody would
seniors,
give
right?
a shit about that. So I kind of just did the first few episodes were like just sort of what was going on in senior pickleball, all the way from the pro level to the amateur level, and I would just kind of give little bullets and news updates for probably the first few months, and then like anything else, somebody sends you a paddle, somebody sends you something else, and then next thing you know, you're doing things,
Sweaty
like
balls.
we're all doing. Yeah, sweaty balls, the whole bit.
Sweaty balls.
And we're going to have to talk about the ball situation because obviously that thing
Oh,
has blown up in the last 24 hours.
Wow.
I mean, listen,
which impacts you directly, Crown.
Wow.
Hey, you know what? We talk about this already, but I'm gonna make that as our segue to this whole thing, because I want to know what your take is on the ball situation. Maybe pro.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of riff any way you want to go in that direction. There's some potentially different ways you can go about this, but what's your take about that?
Without dropping the ball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what happened yesterday is just another example of what's happening in the clusterfuck that is known as professional pickleball. And I don't know what I've told you two separately, but I'm narrating a documentary that is coming out in the next several months. It's going to be on a major streaming service. And so it's basically about what's going on in pro pickleball from from 2021, the first MLP, all the way up till just basically where Steve Kuhn resigned. And they basically had to wrap the movie because, they could go on forever. And the ball thing is just another thing, It seems like it's the highest bidder. If you want to play in Premier and MLP, you just got to buy your way into it. If you want to get, a ball contract, obviously nobody has to play with this thing ever. We're just going to shove it down your throat and pay a bunch of money and charge people a ton of money just to try and use it as well. So I think it's just another, I've been writing it all over Twitter. I've been talking about it for months. It's just part of the grift. I think these guys are grifters. I think it's a big grift. And
yeah,
I think there's an approach that is kind of grab what you can at this point and don't think long term. And who cares about the consequences? And clearly, who cares about the players? Because obviously, a few people probably hit this ball. Maybe, Tyler Loon, because he's Vulcan. Maybe Jay hit it.
No. Listen, I watched the Hannah Johns pod this morning. Kind of doing some research. Yeah. And she was interviewing Vince from Vulcan, the CEO of Vulcan Pickleball. Yeah. Anyway, He was saying that they had been in development of this ball for I don't know, 2 years, and they had sent the balls out to all the pros and got all their feedback, and they just happened to win out, even over Yola, which happens to sponsor Ben Johns, and
Right.
Selkirk, who
Kirk.
sponsors a billion people. And I just was like, bruh, you can't bullshit all of us like this anymore. It's basically a pickleball. I got an inbox from a lady today saying, "Oh, I was so disappointed in your balls. Two of them cracked. It was 30 degrees outside."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Right.
what do you want me to do with that?
Only
Like,
two when it's 30, huh?
I'm like, okay. And she's like, yeah. And then I put two outside overnight just to see what happened, and they cracked too. I'm like,
Yeah.
so, it's like the science of this. I don't know what you guys think about this, but the science of
Well, you can
this,
speak to that, obviously. It's plastic. It's a plastic ball. I mean, we're not putting somebody on Mars.
Well, I
a
mean,
hundred,
from my standpoint, I've been doing this longer than you guys. I've been doing this 11 years, right? So, I mean, since Naples started, and I've watched the whole Naples build up, their courts to 56 courts that they are today, from just a skate park and like a ice hockey, like not an ice hockey rink, but an outdoor hockey rink. So for us, it's always been the Dura 40 since
Yeah.
day one, really. You know what I mean? So and then nothing really happened until like Franklin came out and took the sponsor for the US Open, right? So
Right.
once Franklin got that US Open deal, after that everything was Franklin, 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 So and then Durst started to kind of fade a little bit because they had it. But then the pros only wanted to play with the PP at the PPA, or they want to only play with the Dura ball, right?
Right.
But that ball was actually coming from the Dura 40 ball was actually a different ball in the PPA play. It was actually it wasn't the same ball that they were selling. It was kind of like, think about like going through a dryer for a couple minutes, and then that was the ball that the pros use. So now we've got something we don't even know what it is. And the owl ball, what the hell is the owl
The
ball?
owl ball. That's
Is
my
it going to be a
favorite.
quiet ball on the APP circuit now? I mean, if they want to
take
do
the
that, why
jugs.
don't we should have that in the MPL, right? We need a quiet ball for us older folks, right?
so
Yeah.
so I don't know if you guys have seen the owl paddle,
I have.
but yeah. So it's actually
Did you
kind
get
of
one of
cool.
those yet, Sleeves?
Huh?
Did you get an owl paddle yet? Did they send you
No,
one
I
of
have
those?
not gotten one yet. I don't suspect I will get one.
Yeah, I don't know if Drew Brees can afford it.
Yeah.
So I'm this guy, whips it out. We were playing indoor at the Boys and Girls Club, and he pulls
He
out
whipped
this.
it out.
Yeah, he whipped it out with
Whipped
my
out his
sweaty
paddle.
balls and my sweaty indoor balls. But we were playing at the Boys and Girls Club. He pulled out the paddle, and it was like, dude, did you just go down to Denalt's and put some indoor outdoor carpet on that thing?
Yeah.
It was trippy, but from a kind of just a different outside of the box approach as far as having different like fabric essentially on a paddle. I mean,
Strange.
it was quieter. I'll give him that, and it did pick up on the ball. What are you going to do? Some people are starting to do Kevlar, and some people are doing this, and all the different materials, and calling it science and stuff. I think you could probably get pretty, you can get pretty imaginative of what you can put on the face of
Sure.
that paddle.
And also, I saw an article the other day. Well, for long term, they're trying to figure out how not to use plastic for the ball. Trying to create a ball that isn't plastic, because
A hairy ball?
now we care about the earth. So I'm like, oh, this ought to be. We can make it out of hemp.
Do you remember the paddles that were developed really fast? Like they're probably like at Toys R Us, but they would just the ball would stick to it. You take it off and throw it back.
Yeah,
That's what it reminds me of. I don't know if you guys remember that, but
I do.
Yeah.
it
It's
was
like
like
a
a quick little
Velcro Nerf ball kind of thing, right?
Yeah. For people
that's
that
what it
couldn't
reminds
catch.
me of. Strange, very strange.
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
it
think
was
there's
like
any power coming off that.
you slip it over
Yeah.
your hand and you throw it to them, and you pull it off and you throw it, right?
Yeah.
That thing? Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
That's very innovative to me.
It's going to be interesting to see where the ball and the paddle go in the next 2 to 3 years, with all these, and again, all about money too on some level, and who's getting the contracts to do what and develop what. So who knows?
Hey, so on that note, this is a good transition. What do you think? So, given like kind of it's a pay for play for the higher end, elite, professional, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Um, you do a lot of reviews of some up and coming stuff. Obviously, we all know that a lot of 90 whatever percent of it's manufactured probably by the same 5 plants in China. You know,
Mhm.
what are some of your things that you're seeing that you kind of dig on, either by price point or by quality or marketing or to culture,
Yeah.
whatever? I mean, what are some of the cool things that you're seeing right now?
Well, I think the coolest thing I'm seeing is finally there are companies and brands that you can care about that actually have a culture and create a buying experience for.
You just blew
Um,
away Pickleball Studio with that statement, my brother.
I mean, obviously, the Selkirks and the Yolas of the world are always going to get their paddles reviewed and in all that thing, but people forget. And it's my world. There are, I think there were like 900 some paddles up for USA pickleball, approval last year, and nobody's really reviewing outside of what I would call like the big 6 or 7 paddles. You get a random one here or there that breaks through, and whether or not somebody gets paid to review that, and all of a sudden it's the hot item. But I'm on Instagram constantly looking, and these things pop up, and there's new paddle companies. And what I generally look for and what I get excited about is somebody doing something around the product itself that makes me feel like it's something where if I come across it on a court or at a tournament, that I can kind of go, oh, hey, man, you get it. You get it a little bit. Like, you dig this company. This is not an easy brand necessarily to just go out and find at Dick's Sporting Goods or
Yeah.
even
Right.
on Paddle, Pickleball Central. And so, like, obviously,
Like, I see
Gregory
you
with
kind of thing. Yeah,
yeah,
let's go.
with rain and wind, with raw, obviously. And same thing with balls, building something else around it where you go, I care about this because one, they're doing something cool, whether it's they're giving something back to the community or they're doing
Yeah.
something that hasn't been done and it just doesn't feel super corporate. Because the paddles, I'm reviewing paddles, but the hot setup lately, obviously, is the long handle, the elongated face, carbon fiber. But it's what you do with that as well.
Sure.
Part of it's the logo. Part of it is how you kind of, sell it on your social media pages. And are you doing something other than just trying to sell paddles, balls, whatever it is you're trying to do, and building a community around that? And that's why I appreciate when people do something like this, because it's just not about getting the big contract. And it kind of reminds me of what way back in the day when I came into the game, 2020,
Yeah,
it was
baby.
more communal.
Yeah.
And that's that communal feel. Like, I have a relationship with the two of you because you reached out and now you guys connected, and Gregory connected with Raw, a bunch of friends of mine who are
Yeah.
doing hemp stuff in Wisconsin. And so that's what I like, is those groups that kind of connect with each other and then they create something else, and they're not all trying to just take it all and grab the market share.
So
Um, you know,
let me ask you this. Do you think companies that are looking to build community around their products and stuff like that can grow and kind of come into the business and take over with all the money grubbing coming in and all the big stuff,
yeah.
The big huge paddle expense for like thermoform and edgeless paddles, stuff like that technology that's starting to cost more money. So, I mean, you think it's kind of going towards like smaller brands having to spend a lot of money to get going?
Um, well, I'm hoping I'm liking it to more people. The people I play with and most of the people that I interact with that know nothing about pro pickleball, and everybody's sort of in our world. The three of us, we get caught up sometimes on it's the end all, like pro pickleball and what's going on in pro pickleball, when 90 whatever percent of the public doesn't even know probably it exists. And, a large percentage of the players aren't even sure that it exists. Now, the same thing with paddles is I'm starting to go out and see a little more diversity in the paddle game when I go out and play at places I've never been. Whereas a couple years ago, I saw about 3 or 4 brands. Yeah. And I think that is because there are more people coming in that are doing, I guess, what I'm doing or what you're all doing now is influencers that are talking about things outside of the Selkirks and the Yolas of the world. So I do think there's a place for it. I think if you're looking to get into this and get rich, you're probably a little late. But I do think there's plenty of space. I do think there's an oversaturation of paddles at the moment. I mean, if you look at the amount of manufacturers making tennis rackets compared to that, we're making pickleball paddles. Yeah, it's insane. And the same things right now, Kevin's happening with the ball market. All of a sudden, everybody's starting to make balls. It seems like, paddle companies are putting ball. Like I just got a paddle today, and now they have their own balls. And I've never heard of this paddle company before. But they sent me a 3-pack, and so things are starting to happen like that. But at the end of the day, I do think it's about the ones that will stick around are in it for something other than just cashing out. And 2, they're building a culture, whether it's local in their city or in their state or in their region, and maybe nationally, because this game hasn't even gone internationally on any level, really.
Yeah.
I think those are those brands that'll stick.
It's greenfield for international as far as my thought process. And even the big pickle can't solve that readily either because of the way the distribution supply chain is all set up. It costs quite a bit of money. You'd probably have to get some private equity people to drop I don't know, MLP kind of money into a company to really get it into every country that's out there. And frankly, Greg, you could probably talk to this too, but I get bombed from Iran, Rwanda, South Africa, Australia, Singapore. I mean, everywhere. Everybody, they're like, oh, we want to try it. We want to try your balls.
Yeah.
That's what she said. But anyway, don't joke. Anyway, so
you're sick.
I am a sick
joke.
mother. Totally. I need my coffee cup.
I do like that answer though, Sleeves. I think that the culture can stick around, trying to make something happen, and just kind of do something different and be a little bit more of the give back guy sometimes, I'm sure those bigger companies definitely give back, but from one thing to the next, it's always just a money grab that I've been seeing over the past 5 years that I've been probably playing or whatever too. It's the same thing with coaching. I'm super busy. I have over 100 5-star reviews easily with my academy here in St. Pete, but now there's the next Tom, Dick, and Harry that wants to be a coach, and I'm the one that taught them. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just it's kind of getting a little crazy, but I think if you have a good culture and a surrounding, I think you'll survive pretty easily. I mean, you're not going to be a millionaire, like you said, off of this right now.
Well, everybody has that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and like I mentioned, if you want to get into, you want to do this for me, it's about the enjoyment and the game. And if you make something from it too, that's great. I get it. If you're in a business, you need to make money to stay around.
You need firewood for your fires at the yurt. Yeah. Don't lie. You need.
But at the end of the day, it's a wiffle ball game. And I think that's where we kind of I get a little caught up in it at times because doing this film for the last year and a half, all about what's going on, PPA, APP, MLP, acronym soup. You kind of get caught up in what's going on, and you forget, a bunch of people that just go across the street and hit the ball around the court. They don't give a shit about that stuff. What they want is something that works. What they want is something that a company that cares about them a little bit, and that they can actually talk to the owner if they have an issue. And it's not in every store, and it's something unique. That's what I have always been drawn to. That's partly why I live this way. Is I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. It's boring.
Yeah, I got that the other day. Someone, I was going back and forth with somebody, and they were asking me about paddles and stuff like that. And then they bought a paddle, and then they're like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't realize I'm talking to the CEO of the company."
Right.
Holy cow! And they freaked out, and I was like, "Yeah, that's kind of cool."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're pickleball famous. Come on, guys. No, just kidding.
Top spin podcast.
Hey, we sort of are.
Hey, but yeah, we're gonna get even more famous, I guess. But that being said, I mean, I think
Shake
you're
your
right
head.
there. I think there's a culture of like you said,
He didn't get it, Raw.
That's
you
okay.
said
Go ahead.
tip my head.
Check your head. Beastie Boys.
Oh, check my head.
Check my
Yeah,
head.
there you go. You got it. You got it. Sorry.
So what I was going to say is, I think
Intergalactic.
I think it's cool that you're saying this because I think there's some validity to what you're saying. I think companies that are actively seeking to create this culture, creating a vibe,
Yeah.
creating community, are going to be the most successful companies. I've seen so many companies out there, and you guys could probably speak to this too, where they did their deal with China, they've got their product, and they do a couple of posts, and they think, wow, I'm just going to sell through all this stuff, and nothing happens. And it's
Yeah,
just
and they
like,
won't even give
guys,
a paddle away. Part of that is you'd be surprised. I mean, the amount of people, the amount of brands that will not give you something, or that will, like, I had literally I've had several t-shirt companies going, listen, I go, I'll wear your stuff, I'll show a link, you got a discount, blah blah blah. They're like, well, we can give you 40% off that. I'm like, what did a t-shirt cost you? Even if you sold one t-shirt, I sell one t-shirt, you're gonna make a profit.
Right.
I
So
mean,
it's odd that these people they just think it's going to happen. To your point, they just think,
yeah.
like, I put a couple points, I put it on Twitter. I had this whole discussion with this person on direct message on Twitter about why aren't we selling anything. I'm like, well, I'll review your paddle, send me one. They just could not pull the trigger and send me a paddle. Like, we don't have the overhead to do that right now. I'm like, one paddle.
Well, I'll talk to that really quick though. I mean, as far as, me having a paddle company, you know what I mean? So, we get bombed a lot with a lot of different things,
Oh, I'm
as far
sure.
as wanting things like Kevin was saying, Rwanda, this, that, help the kids, but you never know who those
Yeah,
people are sometimes, right?
sure.
So, I'm just gonna speak out real fast just because you reached out to me, Sleeves, the same time
Mm-hmm.
as Farmer Lanky did, and he's got a little thing too. But
Right.
I don't know if you've ever seen his stuff, but
I have.
pretty weak. I mean, but I send these people stuff after they ask me for things,
Mm-hmm.
and then I get nothing. Well,
Yeah.
it's a Gen 1 paddle. I think it's going to be bad for your business. I can send it
Yeah.
back to you. I mean, and this was 4 months later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you've
Yeah.
gotten 2 reviews up already within 2 months, so, he's just taking and being selective, again, maybe there's a payment involved there with a review, but I mean, sitting in a pasture
Yeah.
with cows is kind of weak. I like the Yerk idea a lot better. Paddles and, you got, but what I'm saying is
Yeah.
you can send paddles to people who ask for them and then you get nothing out of it. I've done
Sure.
that with some of these indoor facilities too. Aces in Ohio, back and forth, back and forth. We were great. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, as soon as they got paddles, nothing.
Yeah.
Total ghost. I'm like, at least let me know you got the paddles because I know you did.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
This industry, go
yeah.
ahead, bro.
No, I'm
Finish
good.
your thought.
I'm good.
Okay. So I was just going to say there, part of the reason I think we've been successful on our side is that, we've implored some basic fundamental business best practices, right? When
Yeah.
people reach out to you, you get back to them as soon as you can.
Yes.
When people are saying, hey, can you sponsor a tournament? I mean, you do a little due diligence to find out it's a legit thing, and you send them a box of balls and some giveaways. Not
Right.
only are you creating huge, great favor for yourself, but it's a marketing expense. All that stuff for me, the first couple
Yeah.
months for me, it was just like, dang, am I going to be making any money off this stuff? And then,
Right.
It just was like, giveaway, sponsor this, sponsor that, sponsor that. The upside was that my brand went everywhere. People are like, we love this ball. And, just
Yeah.
happened to, get dealt a full house right on the get-go there to
Yeah.
get this thing rolling. So I'm a total fan. Like, I get pinged all day long for people saying, would you mind, giving us some of this or that for our tournaments? And I've got like kids in high school that are doing like, kid tournaments, college tournaments. I've got senior tournaments. I've got various. There's somebody that did a tournament in the Virgin Islands that was PPA or whatever Duper sponsored. So I mean, our brand's been everywhere in like 6-7 months, and it's like I don't see that changing, because
Yeah.
what's going to end up happening is we're currying favor with all kinds of people that are just like, yeah, Crown, yeah, Raw, whatever. We're just, love these guys. We're going to keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. So
Yeah.
that's the game plan. I mean, I don't see how you cannot give away free stuff. Like if you're not giving away some free stuff, you're just not gonna make it.
Right.
Yeah, and on my end,
discussion.
I just do what I do what I tell people I'm going to do. That's really what it comes down to. So what I do to show them, I'm like, here are the videos that I've done. I'll review them. I give them a timeline. It's going to be anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks, depending on how many paddles are in queue or whatever I have in queue. And I do it. I started off doing paddle reviews for those sets on Amazon. My first few reviews were, I'm just like, somebody gave me something, I'm going to review it. If you were kind enough to send me something, I'm going to look at it and play with it and give you what I think about it. And I'm not the guy to, if you look at my reviews, they're positive. I tell people what I like. I tell people what I think I would like a little bit more, but I'm not going to destroy unless you just send me some pile of shit, which nobody's really done, because even the paddle reviews that I did way back early with those sets, you know what you get for 30-40 bucks. If you're stepping on the court and you want to just, hit the ball around, these are fine. You don't have to buy raw carbon fiber. I think thermoform is overrated on many levels.
Yeah.
Paddles don't last as long. Most people can't control that kind of pop off the paddles.
And delay them really fast too.
They delay them fast. I have a couple. I barely ever play those consistently, and because I'm not good enough yet to play them with the style of play that I am playing. I have a much more control game than power game at this point. And to try and reset some of those balls where somebody's drilling me. I can't control it as well. So I actually like the Gen 1 paddles, for me specifically, better. I play with those. I'm a more consistent player with them. And I'm probably somewhere about if I had to guess, somewhere between 4.0 and 4.3, 4.4 as a player.
I know where you are. I've been watching your videos. Hey, so I want to get into just
paddle head down, boom.
Just a little excerpt of what you said, because I think this was in our outline, Kevin. How long do you think a paddle should last? A thermoform paddle versus a Gen 1 or a Gen 2 paddle. Can they both last the same amount of time, or would one last more than another?
From what I have experienced personally, and from what people that I play with and against, the Gen 1 paddles last a lot longer.
Why?
They just don't. They don't make that crackle sound eventually when you start pushing down on the face. And again, it all depends on how hard you play and how often you play. I play in a group now that plays total old school paddles. I play in 2 groups. The higher level group, they play like old school gearbox and old school paddle tech, and they're good players. And and I'm bringing in paddles all the time and going, what do you think of it? You want to try this? You want to try that? And it's hard to get them to switch, to even try those things, because they're just so used to a particular style in a paddle that they can control the ball on. Whereas I'm playing with a different paddle about every other game, because I have to get a feel of what I think about the paddle. And I have, 5 or 6 in queue that I've got to try as well. So I'm always switching, although unless it's thermoformed in Gen 1, those are the 2 main categories that I'm generally, deciphering between. And I lean towards what I prefer personally as Gen 1, because they have lasted longer.
Interesting.
In my experience.
About how long do you think? How long should it?
A Gen 1 or a thermo?
Gen 1.
If you play, let's say I play twice a week and then I drill about twice a week. For me, Gen 1 probably, I don't know, 2 years.
Okay. And where do they fall apart, do you think, mostly when they start to maybe just
edge guard?
Edge guard. And what kind of So, do you know of any big brands that their edge guards come off all the time?
Well, I don't hit many big brands because I don't review those.
That's a good answer, but I'll tell you one. It's Engage. Okay.
Yeah.
You be, I mean, I just don't know what it is about those paddles, but those edge guards, every time someone comes up with one of those paddles, I'd say 2 months, 3 months into that, any of their paddles, those rails are loose or coming off. Same with Paddle Tech now. Their quality
Yeah.
went down a little bit.
I'll
Not to
tell you
knock
the only
the big
high end
box companies.
the only paddle that most people would know that I've reviewed ever, and I didn't review it for my channel. I reviewed it for Pickleheads. Um, was a Ronbus R1.
Yeah.
And I like that paddle, but that's the
Yeah.
only one that, like, if I mention that, it's the only one that anybody generally knows. Bread and Butter is starting to break through in certain areas because, Pickleball Will did a commercial for them, and I know those guys pretty well. But
Of course
other
they
than
did.
that, most of those guys and most of those people, they've never heard of the paddles I'm reviewing.
Yeah.
And then they look at them and they have their whatever, their Yola, and I put like the Raw next to it, and they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, there's like, 500 other companies doing these things just as well at about a third of the price sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Do
that's
you, do you think
that's the
do you
part.
think Pickleball Studio gets paid to do reviews?
Um, if I had to guess, I would say yes. I mean, I can't imagine he doesn't. I know Will does.
Yeah.
But I think Will mentions it when he's paid to do
Oh,
something.
really?
I don't know. I don't watch
Okay.
enough of Chris's stuff to know, but I'd be shocked if he doesn't. I mean,
Do you get paid to do reviews at all or offered?
no, no. I've never received any dollar amount to do any
Interesting.
sort of product stuff. I've not even offered. But God, I mean, I have barely over 1,000 subscribers, so I'm not anybody at this
Yeah.
point. But once that movie hits, I'm gonna want a lot of Benjamins. I'm gonna make it rain.
Right. Once you get featured on a Top Spin podcast.
That's right. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry,
So
Ted,
my
can't take your call today, buddy.
so
Kevin, do you have
Mike,
anything to say about that kind of stuff that I was getting into there with the paddle
yeah,
stuff? 'Cause I know I
it's
think you're
interesting.
doing something, right?
Yeah, we're doing a kind of a different approach. I don't know. I'll talk about that maybe on a different pod. But as far
Okay.
as like the Engage goes, one thing I noticed because my wife really liked they were when we took initially the class together and stuff. They were an Engage had an
Sure.
Engage
Yeah.
rep show up and sell
Yeah.
out. And she ended up buying a couple of different Engage paddles over time, like a Poach and something else. And
Yeah.
one thing that you go from playing with a Z5 or something, with just learning how to play to an Engage is like, wow, this is such a good paddle. Da, 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 da. But I think as that ability starts to catch up with like where Engage is at, I feel like they start to realize, they start to hit it harder. And so what's happening, I don't know if it's like a dead spot thing, like with the middle of the paddle, but I noticed that my wife really, when she started hitting right away with the paddle, it was great. It was, doing what she wanted it to do. And then it started to really lose power, over, a small period of time, actually, not even
Yeah.
that much. So it's a tricky balance. I'm still learning about paddles, and obviously you're the king of that stuff here today, Gregory. But I feel like there's just as much kind of like directionally, specific ways you can go with the paddle. You can go and make the edge really sharp, and you can have that be really firm, but then that's going to affect the center of the paddle. You can work on making the center of the paddle great, but then that's going to impact how much weight and so on and so forth. And so I think it at the end of the day, our approach to making paddles is going to be a lot simpler. I think from a brand's perspective, that's where we sit. We could kind of give a shit about the premium marketplace, the pro marketplace, all that stuff. Vulcan can charge $25 for 6 balls. Go right ahead. We've got basically a better ball, I think, and we're killing them on price. It's so funny to see all the reposts and stuff on our
God.
on our ads right now.
That's a good thing
But
because I mean, I do a lot of tournaments, right? So I mean, I'm always looking for a ball sponsor, right? If it's not Franklin or Dura 40, it's Crown now, right? So guess who's cooler now, right? Crown, right?
Right.
Because they're in between ball and it's just as good. The quality's just as good. So, now it's like, okay, like if I ask Vulcan, or, Selkirk, or, again, the bigger brands to do something for you or sponsor you with a tournament, right? It's kind of like what you said with the paddle sleeves. They don't want to send you nothing, or
Yeah.
we'll give you 40% off today for your tournament. That's your tournament. And you know what?
Right.
And we're putting their ball out there and they want you to hang a banner. They're not giving you any money, to sponsor the
Yeah.
tournament, but they're giving you the ball. So they think they've done you something huge, right? So
Right.
much appreciated on your side, Mr. Crown.
Hey, that's
Yeah.
what we're about,
And I
And
think that's
we
what I have enjoyed. I enjoy the paddle end, something that is more of sort of the blue collar workman's paddle. It's going to last. It doesn't have to be glitzy. It doesn't have to be thermoformed. Pick the handle length you like or the handle shape you like and the face you like, and let's go. And I think that's what like anything else, we just trick the shit out of everything. We got to trick it up because that's how capitalism on this level works. You got to come up with something new all the time. You got to put little holes on the side of the paddle, or you got to change something. You got to thermoform it. You got to come up with Kevlar, whatever it happens to be. That's why I
Yeah.
like your paddles, Gregory, because the two that I have, I play with one. My closest neighbor plays with the other, and they're just great. They just last, and I know what I'm gonna get every single time. And the biggest thing for me is if I'm gonna recommend something like that to somebody, it's not gonna bust the bank. And
Sure.
B, I know the guy,
Sure.
and I trust the guy. For me, that's the biggest thing. I'm never gonna know the guy at Selkirk. I'm never gonna know the person at Yola. Nor do I care to. It doesn't matter to me. That's
Yeah.
too many levels. I do like, and I hope it stays somewhat, kind of the mom and pop shop where I can meet the person, I can talk to them, I got their cell, I have their email, whatever it happens to be. And that's what I like about the bread and butters guys. They're like you guys. If something's not, they're like, they don't even listen, man. Take another one. Like I had a guy who bought a bread and butter. He was playing out here as visiting, and he came and he's like, "Yeah, I got a little goofy thing, a little ring in here." I just said, "Let me write Doug," and boom, Doug's like, "Yeah,"
Yeah.
yeah,
because
we're the same way. We have
yeah, that's the
100%
thing. That's why,
honest.
and I only have
Whatever.
tight relationships with about 5 people that are making equipment outside of apparel. And
Yeah.
that's the reason, because those people get back to me with things and they reach out and they do what they're going to say they're going to do.
Well, it's
That's the
same
biggest
thing
thing. If
with,
you say something, do it.
yeah, same thing with Regalia, pickleball, Jack
Yeah.
from Los Angeles. I mean, he flew out here
Yeah.
and he gave away his paddles to all my winners. I
Yeah.
mean, that's pretty badass. You know what I mean?
That is
And
badass.
I have
And
my
it's a
own
good
paddle
paddle.
brand.
Yeah.
I have my own paddle brand, and he's coming out here from Los Angeles to
Yeah.
actually do that. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we're not against anybody else. We'll support
No.
smaller brands, Selkirk comes into the picture, or Yola. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, you can have that within a different paddle for $100 or $150, right? It's the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
paddle, same thing. But just because Ben Johns or Tyson McGuffin plays with it doesn't mean that you're going to be that good.
No. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's a marketing thing. So.
Sure.
So, Mike, let's kind of wrap things up here. What do you got going on for 2024? What do you got planned as far as either for the pod, yourself? Are you gonna go do some traveling? You gonna play a lot of pickleball? Obviously. What do you got planned?
Oh, NPL. Definitely talk to us about NPL real fast too.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah, that
sure.
too.
I love NPL. They've been nothing but fantastic to me. I don't work for them or anything. I went to 2 events. I did a little, I was in the booth calling games and their live feed for one of the events. But I want to support, because I am the senior pickleball channel. I'm really the only person doing this, which I still can't believe. But seniors and glamour. So the Senior Pro Tour, which Matthias is helping kind of organize, I want to support that, and I want to support the National Pickleball League, which Beth Bellamy, Rick Witzkin, and Michael Chen have kind of put together, and are building really well. a league. I think the Open Pros could learn a great deal from the way the seniors have sort of taken the reins of their own destiny, their own fate. because they saw the writing on the wall. They saw what, their prize money was going away. They weren't necessarily being treated as well. And the thing is, they have an unbelievable amount of talent outside, and I'm not talking pickleball talent necessarily, but life talent and professional talent that they don't have to go out and find billionaires to run shit for them, because they are lawyers and they are physical therapists and they have started tons of companies. So they have a wealth of knowledge that I think they've used very wisely in the last year and a half by starting their own, bracket tournament tour and their own team tour. And they're taking a slow approach. They're not necessarily always kind of going after the big names either. I'm not saying they're not going to do that, but I really think they're in it because they've already sort of made their money in life. They're not trying to make a living at this. So they're in a different place to do that. But at the same time, I think these people that are in their 20s that are just 10 minutes ago, they were playing D3 tennis and now they got to sign a contract with the PPA or they're out, in 3 days. They could learn a lot from sort of the approach the seniors are taking. And that is, I think eventually, sort of like Pro Beach Volleyball did, you might have to take this into your own hands, because you're just going to get whiplash with these billionaires and millionaires just throwing you around constantly because they don't give two shits about you. Clearly, They didn't let you play with the ball much. You got to sign these contracts. Now you got to take a 40% cut, whatever it happens to be. It just seems to be this wealth of lies that keeps coming from, these organizations. And so I love what the seniors have done. And I hope some of these people that are trying to, I guess, like Zane a little bit, speaking out and trying to kind of create some sort of collective for players, tap into some of these people, because there's just a wealth of knowledge sitting there waiting. And so for me, for this year, I want to be more involved with those things, whether it's I'm working with them, for them, doesn't matter. I want to support the senior game because, that was kind of the foundation of the sport anyways.
Kevin and I have on tour with you, Sleeves.
There we go, man. I need to play with somebody that can just, yell at me on the court and get me better really quick. I'm a lefty, so I can play the right.
Ooh.
I'm available to play the right. My goal is to be in the next 2 years is to get to 5-0. But
on your duper or your pickleball brackets?
Either way, I'd say more about somebody I'm playing with that is a 5-0 that would say you're a 5-0. But my biggest challenge is this: I live in the middle of nowhere, so
definitely
I don't
have
5-0
out there.
I am not going to make a 5-0 out there. So what I'm going to eventually have to do is get to the point where I go and spend part of my time playing somewhere else. But we'll see what happens.
I think New Mexico's got a couple spots still for you, I'm sure.
For sure. I'm just in the part of New Mexico where there's nothing. Like, Albuquerque, Phoenix is closer to me than Albuquerque.
Oh, wow.
But I lived in Phoenix, so I can go there. I have family there, some relatives. I can stay there. There's a ton of good pickleball players in Phoenix, so I have places I can go and spend months and play. And then the other big thing for 2024, I think this film is going to be a game changer for me on some level. It is going to be on a major streaming service. It was made by a Hollywood production company.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm narrating it. And
right on.
Cool. I think it'll bring a lot of eyes on me. Which will hopefully bring a lot of eyes to brands and the people that I've really, have allowed me to have content.
Yeah.
So that's
cool.
why I thank you guys. And that's why I want to be involved with this and what you guys are doing, because you're cool dudes and you make good stuff. And, I feel like there's some honesty here that we're not seeing at certain levels of the game. And I'm desperate for honesty. So. Yeah, thanks, dude.
Nice.
And you bring that up, Gregory, but where I live, we don't actually refer to where we live, each of our little places. We don't say I'm going back to my house. We actually refer to it as our camp, because technically we're all really camping in some level. Like I live in a yurt, which is basically a tent. It's, it's a round 19-foot structure that was made in Mongolia. It's handmade, hand painted. It's built on a deck. And other people live in adobe structures, school buses.
Like
so it's this hodgepodge of things. So we go to our camp.
I like it.
Yeah, that's rad, man. Hey, Mike, thank you so much again for being on our pod, dude. This is really cool. We're going
Thanks,
to
brother.
totally be supporters of the Senior Pickleball Report. We'll also be looking for some really good promotion from you from your narration work here that you're going to obviously tag us on. We'll repost it throughout the socials. Brother, thank you again for being supporters of us, and we'll catch you on the other side.